Welcome to the Groyper Report. Introducing the most racist men alive. They are shutting it down as we speak. Welcome to the Groyper Report. Sexist. Racist. Phobic this, phobic that. Terrorizing women across the country. Telling them to wear clothes. Saying all women are mid. Minorities fear them. The president has them on speed dial.
Guess what? Your body, my choice.
Brought to you by Frog Aura Maxing. Brought to you by Frog. Giga Chat Central, yes, thank you for asking. They all must go. Welcome to the one and only. Defending the last white men on Earth. AtlasThugged and Josh Vander Nord. This is the Groyper Report.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome in to the one network not afraid to say Christ is King. My name is Aaron Shepard, and this is my co-host,
Joshua Vander Nord.
And this is the Groyper Report. Welcome in to this lovely November 1st, the beginning of November. We have a lot to get into for this week. I am very excited to explore that with everyone here. And very excited for my partner to be here and not be in a vehicle or a Jewish tunnel. We still don't know where he was at last week. But with that, man, so excited to get into this. I'll keep the intro and opener short because we have a lot of clips to get through. The idea is we're going to be covering Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and they didn't do a show Friday, but we're going to cover all of the major clips and try to get through some of the controversy, some of the funny bits, but largely getting your guys' opinions and comments over what you thought on these takes. So with that, Josh, anything to add before we go into the first clip?
Yeah, I'm relieved that he didn't do a show Friday because there is so much to talk about. I don't know how we're going to cover what he did do in 2 hours alone, but we're going to make it happen, Captain.
Agreed. And we're going to start on Monday. This first clip, and we're going to break it down because some of these clips later through the week actually connect to some of these statements. But the first clip is probably the biggest clip of the week. The "You're a Fed" Spider-Man moment between both Nick Fuentes and Tucker Carlson. Ladies and gentlemen.
You were a Fed. I was a Fed.
Yeah. I'm not a Fed. But whatever, I don't care what people think.
We showed each other our badges. We know we're all.
No, but I thought you were a Fed because I was like, why not? It's not cucking to say you're not talking about all Jews when you oppose a foreign policy position. It's not. There's nothing liberal about that. It's just true. That's the Christian position. Okay. And two, why are you attacking like the best people and not the worst people?
Well, yeah. I mean, again, he disavowed me for my views on Israel and said I talk too much about white people and Christianity. And to me, that's like a sincere ideological disagreement.
I get it.
And, same thing with Marjorie. Marjorie fired my guy. She disavowed me. And, and you worked with Blumenthal on that article, but you called me on the phone and we talked.
Yeah, I mean, I was
it.
like, from my perspective, I mean, this is all so stupid and inside baseball and whatever, but for the record, I was like, first of all, who is this kid? I'm working at Fox News. I'm aware there's an internet, but I'm more out of it than you may appreciate. And I'm like, out of nowhere, attacking this one. I had Joe Kent here to my house. I did this interview with him, and I'm always in search of a sincere politician. Don't have to agree on everything, but I really believe sincerity is the whole game. If someone's heart is pure, he will be brave. I always have thought that, and it's turned out to be true. Marjorie's a perfect example. And that's all that matters. If you're afraid inside, if you're weak inside, you will crumble when it matters. So I really felt like, wow, Joe, don't agree with him on everything, of course, but I was like, this guy is really sincere. He's like a good person. And then you show up and you're like, he's a CIA officer and he was a CIA contractor, but like really like crush the guy. And it's like, why of all people, you agree on 90% of stuff, That was my view. And I was like, well, clearly this kid's a Fed.
Right. But you didn't know the whole story.
I didn't. You're absolutely right.
And look, and now that, and I want to be, I'm not trying to be combative. I think
Go ahead. You're not going to hurt my feelings.
No, I mean, here's what I'm trying to say is now that Marjorie is pushing in the right direction, I absolutely support everything she's saying. And I've not been critical of her at all this year.
Yeah.
Because I think that what she's doing is extremely courageous. And I think you're right. She is sincere.
So it sounds like you're, not to put words in your mouth, but your life experience has left you so stung by the Republican establishment. You don't trust anybody, it sounds like.
Well, no, I mean, these people attacked me when the rules were different, and now they got better, and now I'm good with them. I mean, I'm willing to be good with them, but I think that I don't know if Marjorie still has a problem with me or not.
So I'm going to turn this over to Josh. I want to know what Josh's first thoughts were on this Spider-Man moment. Who is a Fed, calling each other a Fed? I think, actually, you know what, Josh, why don't you go ahead and lead?
All right. So my thoughts on this, when the Tucker Carlson interview dropped, I was like, yo, let's go. Because we, Alex Jones kind of hinted at this, and Nick, he didn't say it wasn't happening. So I was like, I bet it is happening. I bet that's coming up soon. And, Tucker Carlson, when he posts things on his Twitter, he puts time codes in. And I saw the, who's a Fed time zone. That's the first thing I went to, which was this exact clip. And personally, I was disappointed because they did, I am thoroughly convinced that Tucker Carlson is a federal agent. And I'm convinced of this because of Nick Fuentes. Nick Fuentes laid out over the past year, and especially recently, we're all aware of those shows he did where he basically ousted Tucker Carlson as a liar. They talk about how after quitting Fox News, he's going on this media tour, interviewing every South American leader that there is, going to Russia and stuff. It's very weird, suspect stuff. And look, I'm not going to say that Tucker Carlson is the head of the CIA. I can't guess what rank he is, but he's a Fed. Tucker Carlson is a Fed.
So
now, go ahead.
Well, I was going to say, I think there's an argument to be made that he almost certainly, definitely was a Fed. I think there's an argument to be made of, was he let go? Did he fall out of the in group, right? Is he no longer in the limited hangout? Especially given some of the recent positions he's taken. Obviously, this last kind of year or two for Tucker Carlson has been a solo streak against basically everybody. But even at that, though, I don't know if anyone who formerly has been a Fed can still be trusted regardless. I would say, though, I think ultimately, when you think of things politically, strategically, and we're trying to win, right, still under the same kind of guise of winning, at the ballot box, unfortunately, but also culturally too. I think Tucker is somebody you do have to ally with, because who else is close enough to Nick right now that's big like Tucker?
That's basically the broader point I was going to make, which is there, of course, is arguments to be made on that's a possibility. There's a lot of possibilities that I hadn't considered that I am thinking about now because of this interaction. It has kind of shaken me for a loop. That being said, I will be clear. I think Tucker Carlson is a Fed. I think he's still a Fed. The question is what happened with Nick? Has Nick been assimilated, or is it true that Tucker Carlson didn't know who he was? Is he not on the radar? What's going on here? So I want to get your thoughts on that.
Well, so everybody probably knows this, right? I'm a professional lurker. I'm probably the last person to arrive to a party and tell them 100% absolutely sure. And what I will say is this: as of right now, I don't think Nick is a Fed. What I would say, though, is I think that there's a lot of ammunition for people to make that case. And so, for example, just in this kind of attempt to mainstream himself, right, dial back the language, try to maybe shape up the rhetoric a bit more to match an American candidate that you could actually see one day actually taking up the podium. I do think that in that effort, he's basically handed a bunch of video clips to people for them to say he's a Fed. Oh, look, he's changed. Oh, look how different his rhetoric is. But I think the same argument can be equally applied to the fact of, would you not expect this change in rhetoric if somebody was kind of being given the signal, hey, clean it up a little bit, maybe there's a spot at the table for you.
Yeah, that's kind of what I think is going on, and that's what concerns me a little bit is is the seat at the table worth it right now? Because I think what's going on behind the scenes is this, trying to be as charitable to Nick as possible. Because I'll say this, I don't think Nick is a Fed, but what I said this on Outside the Overton. My position a week ago, my position before Monday was, if you think Nick is a Fed, you're retarded. You don't have a good enough reason to think that. My position now is I don't think he's a Fed, but there is an argument to be made now.
And I agree with that.
It's because of the Tucker Carlson interview and because of his stance on Tucker Carlson after the fact. But I don't want to jump the gun too much here, but I basically think, kind of like what you were saying, maybe he was offered a seat at the table or whatnot. In Nick Fuentes' own words, what Tucker is doing, so Tucker's a Fed, yet he's critical of Israel. Why is that? Why is that happening? Well, like the Jews, we talk about world Jewry. He talks about world Jewry. They're not a monolith. And in the same way, I don't think the CIA, the Fed, so to speak, are a monolith either. And Nick Fuentes said Tucker Carlson is in the camp of he doesn't acknowledge world Jewry. He doesn't acknowledge that it's all Jews. He just thinks it's Israel. And he thinks we need to de-escalate the situation, get Israel to be self-sustaining in the region so we can shift our view to China. That's what Tucker Carlson's belief and intent is.
Yeah.
So with that in mind, I think that, Nick, I think they squash the beef. And he's basically willing to work with Tucker Carlson because he's clearly benefiting from this.
And I agree. So the thing I would think I would push to next would be the most viral clip that came out of this. Make sure I get the great screen for it. And that was the Morgan Ariel bitching, kvetching, whatever you'd want to put in there, basically screaming, screeing, and reeing at the fact that Nick had a strong stance towards and against the kind of status quo of women. So this will be our next clip here. Let's go ahead and cue it up.
Andrew Tate's a Muslim polygamist who is very chauvinistic. And you could even argue it as someone who has ran an OnlyFans site himself, like is not an observer, let's say, of Christian sexual morality.
No.
But men are going with him because he's putting women in their place. He's talking about patriarchy and women's place in a society like that. Whereas Christian men, Catholics, Protestants alike, are both kind of tone policing the men. And they worship their wives. They worship the women, put them on a pedestal. And they kind of get bossed around. They get henpecked by the women.
I think we're required to love our wives. Like that's, all over the New Testament. Husbands, love your wives. Wives, respect your husbands. That seems like a very natural balance to me.
Yeah, and I think that you have to love your wife as your wife.
Yeah.
A lot of men...
As opposed to what? Your mom?
Well, no, like your buddy.
No. Because
I hear this all the time, and I hate this. Guys will say, I married my best friend. And I think, she's your wife. She's not your best friend. Because there's a difference.
What is the difference?
I think that when you talk about your best friend, you're a peer. You're an equal. And I think your best friendships are with other men. And I think that your wife ultimately is subordinate to you. She's your helpmate. Yeah. And ultimately, as the man in the marriage and as the father, you have authority, the final say over the household.
Well,
and she can give advice. It's not to say I'm not a freak where you say, shut up, woman. Of course, you discuss things with your wife and your wife gives input, but the authority rests with the man.
Of course. But God set up this kind of amazing system where men are physically stronger. Mm-hmm. So of course you could make your wife do whatever you wanted. You're bigger than she is.
Right.
But he also instilled in men this desire to please your wife. That's a very natural thing. You want your wife to be happy.
Absolutely.
And the whole happy wife, happy life thing is completely real. It's like you can't get away from it. It's not like all of these things. It's not a choice. It's the biological reality that you live with, that you were born with. You want your wife to be happy. And if she's unhappy, you're unhappy. to a much greater extent than vice versa, right?
Yeah.
I think men care about their wives being happy much more than wives care about their husbands being happy.
Yes.
I have noticed. And that's compensation for their lack of physical power.
Mhm.
That's my view of it. And that's why it is this kind of perfect balance. But
So with that clip in mind, my take on this was actually, I loved it. I loved it because, for one, I think Nick had probably maybe the most succinct little quote in there, I think, to apply to this idea of the problem of what is with marriage. But it was also cool because it was basically like, here's a Gen Z man who has been staunchly against the kind of status quo of marriage versus the, traditional guy who happy wife, happy life. And I think the most succinct thing in there from Nick was you do need to love the relationship with your wife needs to be that. It needs to be a relationship with your wife. It needs to be one where you are, what's the word? It's one where you are actually in one that is subservient. And I do think we did end up getting copyrighted, actually, unfortunately.
Oh, damn it.
I think we did.
What does that mean? We're gone? Like they took us down?
It says stream unavailable. Stream
Fiddlesticks.
suspended. Let me check it, actually. See if we'll come back or not.
Well, I can give my take while you work on that if you think that'd be best, because
Go ahead.
it'll show up in the replay, right?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, I think this actually something I really liked about this take was when I saw this, it got me thinking about how essentially the world we live in and the lives we live, they're actually filled with various types of relationships. And I was thinking about that because of this clip where essentially, something we face all the time is guys like, the incel types. They'll have these relationships with their buddies, with their guy friends, with their friends, and they'll play video games. They have camaraderie, they have banter. They go back and forth, they horseplay, this kind of stuff. And you get this certain high from that, this certain feeling of brotherly love, camaraderie, and whatnot. And basically, the relationship that you have with a woman, the relationship you have with your wife, a lot of these guys that aren't mature, they basically view a relationship with a woman in the purview of that same thing. They almost like inappropriately blend these two things together. And we talk all the time. It's like, okay, your relationship with your wife is different than your relationship with your mom, obviously. Right. But this idea, because basically, I think to put it more succinctly, when we say your wife is not your buddy, I almost think that this give and take relationship dynamic is almost more prevalent in a friendship, because a friendship is a non-essential relationship to life. A marriage, to a certain degree, is, and that is actually more transactional. You do love each other. It doesn't mean, it's like a business, but, there is these clearly well-defined roles within a marriage relationship as opposed to a friend relationship.
Agreed. And for everybody, yes, we are back. Give me 1 second here. Yes, it looks like the stream is back. It was copyrighted. I was checking the YouTube rules literally while I saw that stream was suspended. It says if it detects you don't have any copyright material, it will let the stream resume. So I just waited it out. It looks like we are back and live. So go and grab all of your friends who left and who were absolute cowards and did not stay to watch the show. But with that, back into it. I think we're just going to have a hard segue off of that clip because that kind of ruined it. Let's go to the next one here. I think another kind of controversial thing that was very, that was spotty, if you will, and one that I'm kind of like, okay, I get it, but I understand why people would react to it, was Nick Fuentes' comments about Stalin. And what's funny was it wasn't really covered much deep into the interview, right? Like Tucker didn't really push back hard on that one, but he did cover it later on in a clip. And so let's go ahead and pull this up because it's kind of Nick's defense of why he made that statement, which is funny because he's made similar statements before with other leaders as well. Let's go ahead and put that up on screen.
That's why.
Blaze of Sebaste sent $50. You crushed it on Tucker. Loved every minute of it. But it is funny how we're forbidden to LARP, yet you can say Stalin's birthday is an important date for you. Smiley face emoji. Don't get me wrong, you're the leader, you have all the prerogatives, you're right about everything, as the Italian saying goes, but it's also super funny. Much love from, Croatia emoji, 07.
Well, it's not funny. I mean, it's just they're two completely different things. One is really just a general analytic framework, which is I appreciate great men of history. Whether it's Stalin or Hitler, whether it's George Washington or it's, Otto von Bismarck, whoever it is, the analytical framework is great men of history. Great men drive history forward. I admire them, even the ones that do evil things, even the ones that might be evil, we have to learn from and admire those that are effective users of statecraft and politics. And that's different than wearing a costume. Like I didn't wear a costume to a Halloween party. I said that I admire a great man of history, which he is, by the way. And I'd love to get into that more. I wish we were able to get into that, but because it's a very interesting subject to me, which you guys are just not ready for. A lot of you guys are just not free thinkers. A lot of you guys, here's the problem. And it's okay because you can't help it, but most of you are just shackled thinkers. And what you want to hear is like one note. And the one note is something like, I don't eat seed oils. I don't eat seed oils and I don't drink beer. It's all those phytoestrogens. And these immigrants, I don't want them here. And I don't wear suits. That's too fancy schmancy. And I like the Confederacy and the Civil War. And I think a man should have a beard. And yeah. And I don't like frills. All that fancy stuff, that's not for me. I just got my dog and I'm just out here. And I like country music too. I don't like rap music because that's for black. You kind of just like want one note. And if it strays at all, where you're like, America should have a neo-colonial outlook. Oh, that's neoconservatism. Oh, that's Jewish. Or if you say, oh, no, I kind of like lattes. I like Mexican food. I like La La Land. Arrest me! Officers, did you forget your handcuffs? Or am I free to go? Yeah, I like La La Land. And I like Joseph Stalin. And I'm done pretending that I don't. Did you forget your handcuffs? Or is that not a crime? Am I being detained? Anyway, what was the question? No, but but a lot of you guys are just shackled thinkers, and you.
That was epic, and I agree. I agree with everything there. Josh, take it away. What were your thoughts watching this?
Yeah, so you got to keep in mind here, Nick Fuentes is he's thinking a lot about his brand new audience, which is essentially the Tucker audience, which is a blend of your brain rot boomer, and by brain rot I mean like not brain rot, like rotted brain boomers,
right?
And you're like millennial moms, and you're just basic bitch conservatives, and so he basically is giving a healthy injection of his traditional Nick Fuentes self, but also trying to explain it to them. Because like he says, people have these one-track minds. Is he endorsing everything Joseph Stalin did? No. But he admires the great things that Joseph Stalin did accomplish.
Which I agree. I mean, I think later on, he does mention it again, right? Like we have to be ready to tangle with the things that made some of these guys able to wield statecraft in such an efficient manner, whether we would consider them to be morally evil or morally good. And, I think admire is like that word that stretches it, because people have an automatic association with admire. They think, oh, wow, I love him, and I'm sure it's not that kind of a relationship there, but it's an appreciation of like, these were great men who accomplished a lot of things. And, I know infamous is probably a better word, right? Infamously powerful men, right? Maybe not great in terms of the, how you would describe normal things that would fall under being great. But I do think it's funny. And the second thing is actually more of what I think is the story here, which is the kind of shackled thinking. And this is something that I've noticed a lot on my timeline. Actually, people might notice I've been posting a lot less actual like articles or writings or my thoughts, and more so just videos, and I treat it like it's just brain rot. And that's because I'm getting very irritated at that exact thing, which is this kind of shackled thinking, this out of context, letting a 20-second clip bother you that you post about it 4 times. And it's not women who are doing it. A lot of it's men. And so I would like to wonder, how can we get men to not behave in such an effeminate manner, like arguing and bicker like women on the timeline over such small things? But he's exactly right. And there was a similar story that I saw where a guy basically went into a church to challenge a guy who was a gay affirming pastor. And no joke, he's getting pushed and shoved out by a bunch of men in the congregation who, quite simply, are shackled thinkers. They see anything like that with a camera or Levere, they think it's a prank or a YouTuber. And it's just to show that the shackled thinking is keeping men from going outside the box. They have to accept what's given to them from the right person, or else they don't know how to engage with it. But moving on to the next clip, I think would be very important.
Well, I want to say real quick on that about the shackled thinker thing is the problem with that is, and I think the solution to it is basically what Nick does. I think a big part of the reason Nick is so effective, both as an entertainer and as a communicator, is his style of he never admits when he's wrong. Because first off, he rarely is, but he basically goes hard. If you think he's gay for liking La La Land, he's gonna throw it back in your face 1,000 times harder. And this is actually, I would argue, this is actually the masculine-ist of that, because what we're dealing with a lot of the times in this movement is libertarians, even people that don't identify as libertarians. The libertarian mindset has infected people so much where they think everyone that came before us, their problem was they're just not chill, man. Like we're chill, and it all culminated in us right now, and we just like, it's no big deal, man. And that's why Nick talks about, I love Hitler, I love Stalin. Why? Because they weren't chill, because they were badasses and they conquered the world. They both came this close to conquering the fucking planet. Agreed. That's cool. Cheech and Chong aren't cool.
Well, and I'll put even a nuance thing there too, and hate to extend it too much. But one thing I would talk to House about, and I have these conversations quite often because it's so specific to me, right? Which is like people go like my voice, right? Your AI, whatever. I used to get mad at it. Now I just realize like it's a compliment. Like if you just think I'm an AI or like I'm modding it somehow, whatever. But then you do listen to literally guys who were here 20 years ago commentating, and it's like their voices are deeper than mine. And I'm just kind of sitting there going like, what happened to men, right? Where did that original radio voice come from? Where did those guys go? You go to even like the you go post Charlie Chaplin, right? Early American Hollywood. All the guys have like these raging deep voices, and it's obvious that obviously the fall of man is one thing, but the clear poisoning with all these industry controls from food and psychological and social media, it's shown its face in a matter of like less than 60, 70 years. We have got to move away from stuff like that. And to be quite frank, I think a lot of the arguing and bickering and our inability to actually approach things clearly is because we are all poisoned to some degree.
Absolutely.
But, to move on to the next one, the next one's kind of a funny one. It's a bit of a highlight to someone who I had on my show, and then I believe he went on your guys' show, Prosopa Insights. And Prosopa Insights did a face reading of Candace Owens that Nick reacted to, and it was pretty good. Let's take a listen to the clip here.
Yeah.
Prosopa Insights sent $20. Great show. Loving the generational run. I'm glad to hear that I helped to reawaken your Irish identity with my analysis, lol. Did you see my physiognomy video on Candace Owens? A lot of the Groypers liked it, and I was wondering if you thought it's squared with what
but
you know about
I
her.
need to
Peace
watch
and good
that.
heavens.
I need to watch that as soon as humanly possible. Oh, this is going to be good. Oh, yeah. Oh, yes. Let's run it. I think we will. Yeah, I think we will.
Hello everybody, welcome back to another Celebrity Face Reading. My name is Taylor, and today we will be looking at none other than Candace Owens, the famous American conservative political commentator turned conspiracy theorist, who has been making waves as of late with a lot of very bold theories and investigations, especially regarding some of the most controversial topics out there. Chief among them, as of late, the unfortunate untimely death of Charlie Kirk, which she claims she has some evidence that there are some shadowy forces at work behind the scenes at. In addition to this, she has also made...
Let's just skip ahead.
physiognomy per se. We're going to take a quick look at her phenotype, which is the physical expression of her genetic heritage and ancestry. Now, obviously, Candace is of African descent. She is African-American, descended from West African slaves brought to the American South. And specifically, I think that she has some sort of Congolid phenotype. This means that her ancestors probably came from Central Africa, more so than West Africa, from the Congo, maybe around Nigeria with one of those Ghanaisid types. In any case, probably has some Bantu ancestry in there. And if you look at the shortness of nose combined with otherwise somewhat European-esque features, maybe just a little bit of pygmy, which I think is neat. Or in my own system of phenotypes that I'm currently developing and will be putting out a book for before too long, she would be what I call a gracile Africanid, which is one of the 5 unique African-American phenotypes found in the New World.
So obviously we don't need to watch all of that. I just wanted to highlight that the Prosopa did make it onto Nick Fuentes. And how funny is it the Nick's reacting to Prosopa before either one of us? I think we need to up our game a little bit. But I thought it was cool because Zeb Boykin had made a comment that some of this work from Prosopa Insights would actually be very valuable in terms of highlighting what actually is a Black American and noticing that there is a different kind of physiognomy behind a Black American versus Africans.
Yeah, and I don't know what your take on this is, Atlas. I'm kind of curious because my take is, and it actually is, shocker, the same as Nick's, which is I don't believe that like deporting all non-white people is possible or even moral to a certain extent. And I would extend that basically to African Americans, where I think this sort of basically you can genetically isolate African Americans from African immigrants, the ones that have been here for hundreds of years. And I think to send them back home, so to speak, would be a death sentence. And personally, I don't think that's moral. Listen, I'm on the same page of essentially, did they contribute as much as they say? Obviously not. Did they contribute nothing? No. Clearly, America was built by white people. It wasn't even built on the backs of slaves for the most part, but I do think we have a moral obligation to them. Now, I'm not saying that means, we make some drastic changes to the civil rights movement. Maybe we go back to the 3/5 compromise. Who knows? Who knows? But yeah, right. What's your take on that?
My response to it is I've also thought about this. I don't think I would disagree with you on the not deporting them. I would 100% do it. It's just the issue is I don't think it's not that we can't, it's that we won't. And my issue is like,
well, sure,
it doesn't matter how hungry the people are. It's like it's clearly there are mechanisms that are more important than the people's interests that are preventing these things from happening. But I do agree on the Black American thing, right? Ultimately in a perfect world, the Liberia situation would have been best. Obviously, following Malcolm X, not having their entire movement led and dictated by MLK, right? Moving towards the more, separation, not segregation. And I think we can still achieve those goals. I think that's probably is, in my opinion, the best way to go about it is if Blacks start doing their communities like Arval. We begin this kind of separation where we start building our own separate and different but parallel kind of groups and economies. But in terms of the American, which we'll get into that, obviously, the controversy is one singular clip that's like a minute long, is about this idea of deportations, who is an American, and I'm sure we'll probably actually disagree on that one, but we'll get that one too later on. One of the next clips that we do have is actually Nick slamming Andrew Klavan. Now, I covered this a little bit on my show yesterday, but Andrew Klavan made some of the most, for one, Jewish, but most insane remarks I've ever heard in my entire life. One being about the crucifixion, and the other being about how he personally, it was supposed to be a joke, but how he personally outranks Christians on the tree and being grafted in. So let's go to this clip here. This is Nick slamming Andrew Klavan, the biggest loser at the Daily Wire.
Andrew Klavan is one of the lower ranked hosts at Daily Wire. I think he gets the least views or engagement out of any of them. So he's the biggest loser at Daily Wire. He's ethnically Jewish, but he converted to Christianity. He works for Ben Shapiro at Daily Wire. And a lot of people might say, well, what more do you want? He converted to Christianity. He's not really Jewish. He's Christian now. He doesn't practice the Jewish religion. He practices the Christian religion. Well, what did Andrew Klavan have to say about my interview with Tucker Carlson as a Christian? I'm not making this up. This is not an exaggeration at all. Predictably, he brought up the Holocaust And specifically about the Holocaust, he said that the Holocaust was worse than the crucifixion of Jesus Christ. That's your Jewish convert to Christianity. He said specifically, he said the Holocaust was the crucifixion in IMAX. So you've got the Son of God nailed to a cross and crucified by man, okay? Mankind killed God for nothing. They conspired, they betrayed him on false charges. They tortured him, and then they executed him publicly in front of his mother in the worst way possible. He is God. And Andrew Klavan says, yeah, but you know what was way worse? The Holocaust. The Holocaust was like that times 1,000,000. That's a Christian? How are you a Christian? How are you meaningfully a Christian? He said the Holocaust was the crucifixion in IMAX. He said this had to happen to show people who didn't get the message the first time when Christ was crucified that this is how evil mankind really is. So I don't think it's an understatement to say that the Holocaust is literally their religion. And by they, I don't mean religious Jews, I mean Jews. I mean ethnic Jews. And that is such a thing. That is ethnic, it's heritage. It proceeds from the mother. If your mom's Jewish, you're Jewish. Like we're talking, it's genetic. That's how they identify. If you want to immigrate to Israel, you need to get a DNA test that proves you're ethnically Jewish. It's in your DNA. So we're not talking about a religion. We're not talking about Zionism, an ideology, because Klavan converted to Christianity, but he still can't let that go. He still can't let it go. His ethnic pride, because that's really what this is. It's a form of ethnic narcissism. It blinds him. Because what I would say as a Catholic about the crucifixion is that we all killed Jesus. The Jews accused him. The Romans carried it out. And this was a handshake between God's chosen, the Israelites, the Hebrews, and the nations, the Goyim, the nations, all the other tribes of the world. It was a handshake between them both to kill God. And Jesus's blood is on all of our hands in that sense. We're all guilty of that. That's what I would say as a Christian. Then this is the ultimate statement, which is that all of our sins put Christ on the cross, and all of the nations literally put Christ on the cross. And the message is that in order to observe Christ's sacrifice, that is why we must truly love everyone like we love ourselves.
All right. Josh, thoughts?
Yes. All right. I know I'm going to get blasted for this one because I got blasted for it on Outside the Overton. I completely agree, but I don't think it's as big a deal as he's making it out to be, in the sense of this is what I got blasted for. I said, look, I think that Andrew Klavan, he's probably just a cultural Christian. You know, it's not my place to say whether he's authentic or not, but Nick's assessment is right that his Jewish identity clouds his judgment and his faith, but I guess it's like, are we really surprised by this? And I said, here's my thing with Andrew Klavan. It's kind of funny. He's the lowest rated. I actually think he's the most charismatic of all four of Knowles, Walsh, and the other one. You know?
Really?
I see you nodding. Yeah. And he's got like that kind of old man Jewish charm. And I saw Nick go off on him for this. And I was like, yeah, I agree. But like, who cares? You know, you can't find any Jew, even a Jew. Like, I reviewed a clip of a Jewish girl on my show today that I saw on TikTok, and she was, you know, like, basically she was going hard against Israel. She was like, the Jews were the Gentiles were grafted in, but we lost the blessing. She was saying the kind of stuff we say, but if I were to say, okay, what do you think about the Holocaust? I guarantee she would probably feel the same way. I think it's sad, but I think it is a tall order for us to expect that of Jews. It's expected of them, but for us to be like, oh my God, it's like what would be unexpected is if Netanyahu was like, I've converted to Christianity, I did 9/11, and I should be shot for this. Like I confess my sins. That would be shocking. Andrew Klavan, a Jew, saying that the Holocaust was the crucifixion on IMAX. It's like, yeah, what do we think he was going to believe about it?
Well, let me do this. Let me ask the chat. Anybody who's paying attention, put a 1 in the chat if you think Andrew Klavan's conversion is genuine. Put a 2 in the chat if you think it is part of the subversion. I'd like to see what your guys' thoughts are. I think he's probably just right on the nose of how much of a deal he's making out of it. The issue is like, yeah, like you can't be placing events over with significance over the crucifixion. Funny enough, there was a video I had caught from Cliff Connect. I think it was an older video. And Cliff Connect is getting actually attacked by a guy with the same argument, but he means it. So he's getting attacked from a Jew, making the argument that there's more evidence for the Holocaust than there is like Jesus' crucifixion. Thus, like the Holocaust is a more important event, and it matters more that we base laws and policy around it. That blew me away. But it was funny to see even Cliff Connect was kind of like trying to dance around some of these questions. My thing is this. This is actually part of the biggest problem. And the problem is this. We have too many people pretending they are Christians and being seen as resources for Christian takes. And so hence, Andrew Klavan is positioned as one of these individuals. Same thing with like, Ben Shapiro not so much, but Andrew Klavan being one of them. People go and listen to his show because in his title, right, it's like Christian convert. And so people expect to hear like a Christian converted take. My only issue is I never hear Christian things from Andrew Klavan. I only hear these kind of quotes and quips I would expect to hear from somebody who cannot let go of their identity. Like, I think Andrew Klavan is the definition of somebody whose identity is not in Christ, right? His identity, he still has a strong connection to what his, Jewish identity is, which I think plays into the hand of like a lot of the comments he makes. But it does look like Chad is overwhelmingly like two. No one thinks it's real.
Absolutely. And that's kind of the point I was trying to make is it's like, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. The most hardcore Jewish convert to Christianity still believes the narrative. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like it's very rare that you'll find a Jew of any color, creed, that does not hold the Holocaust narrative in a special place in their heart, because that is what is being brought. In the same way we're being indoctrinated with it, they're indoctrinating themselves with it. I mean, I talked about this earlier. I've been watching the new Pennywise show, like the show. I brought it up on my show earlier, but there's a scene where there's a young Jewish boy and his dad goes on this tirade about how he's like, you need to stop reading comic books because the real world is scary enough. We were turned into lampshades less than like 20 years ago. And it's like, they believe that though. They're not like, we're going to convince the goyim. Like, they buy it.
Right.
That's the one thing Jews buy that they're not willing to haggle on.
Very true. But my response to that would be, it needs to be acknowledged and exposed for its usage.
Oh yeah.
Right? Like its usage as a humiliation ritual, right? It's commonly used as like a cudgel to beat down other things. That's what I think needs to be acknowledged. And that's why I think Andrew Klavan's way out of bounds there.
Oh, absolutely. I do agree this is inappropriate. I'm not excusing it at all.
No, right. The next thing actually, so we're at the end of Wednesday here, but this last clip we're going to play from Wednesday is actually a direct response from a super chatter to the question of, what does Nick think about Tucker? What is his current thoughts on Tucker? So we're going to play this one. It's a bit shorter. And we have another one from Thursday as well that'll connect to this too, but I'm going to go ahead and pull up the clip here. Let me switch it over, and here we go.
$20. Been a Groyper since 2018. 3 months ago you laid out decisive evidence Tucker was CIA and lying about it. I get the strategy in making allies. But you did say I thought you were a Fed past tense. Do you still think he's sus but are willing to work with him because he's useful? If you think he isn't a Fed, what changed?
I'm not sure. I really have no idea. I mean, everything that I said in that stream, the evidence is there. So I genuinely don't know. But it's not like he would come out and tell me or tell anybody for that matter. But, you know, it's not like I'm not going to talk to him over it. But yeah, I'm not really sure. To me, the jury is still kind of out. And maybe he feels the same way about me, but I don't know. I'm going to assume for the sake of charity that he's not, because he had me on the show. I appreciate that. I don't think a Fed would do that. So I'll just have my tentative belief is that he's no longer one because he had me on. Look, if you have me on the show, then I love you. I'll be very simple. We don't need to get sophisticated. I'll just say I don't think he's a Fed anymore because he's friendly to me. He had me on the show and he was nice to me. So now I don't think so anymore. But if he goes against me, I don't know. It'll be really suspicious.
Good boys
I'll
at
have my
$50.
doubts.
I figured since no.
So you were the one who clipped this, Josh. I'll let you go first.
Yeah. So I realized I didn't actually share this with anybody except Zeb, but that was my question. I'm Niguana. I sent that super chat in, and I was happy. I still holding on my streak that my questions and super chats don't piss him off. He either answers them or he laughs. So I'm happy. I'm very pleased with myself. But
That's funny.
yeah, because this was a genuine question I had. I was like, dude, you were going real hard against Tucker last time, and now, and it's not just like, okay, you went on an interview with him. You're saying now he's not a Fed. And that is concerning to me, but I think how much theorizing do you want to get into? We still got a little bit left. We got about a little over an hour left. You mind if I theorize for a second?
I think
here?
we're good on time. Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. So it's difficult for me to surmise how much of a Fed Tucker is and where like Tucker's mind is, what his strategy is. But I think it's a safe assumption for me to say that it's clear what Nick Fuentes got out of this Tucker Carlson interview. He got massive screen time in front of a huge audience, and his journey into the mainstream has been finalized. It's like Dave Smith said, the clip you brought up on your show last night. Nick Fuentes is not becoming mainstream. Nick Fuentes is mainstream. And this is just the final nail in the coffin of that fact. But what did Tucker Carlson get out of this? What Tucker Carlson got out of this is exactly what he plastered on the thumbnail for this interview. I thought you were a Fed. He wanted Nick Fuentes to say, I thought you were a Fed, or pad the Fed allegations a little bit, as evident by, he says, oh, I thought you were a Fed. And Nick goes, well, I thought you were a Fed. And he goes, right. I'm not a Fed, by the way. You know, he clearly doesn't want people to think that, whether he is or not. I mean, I think he is. So that's what Tucker Carlson got out of this. But the question is, what kind of a deal was made? And I am psychoanalyzing here, which I typically try not to do. But after thoroughly watching all of Nick's content throughout this entire week and really paying attention to like his body language, his micro expressions as best I could, he seemed giddy. He did not seem nervous. He did not seem shy. Super chats that normally would piss him off kind of like he was kind of taking them on the chin. You know, obviously you still get your favorite flavor of Nick. I don't know how that sounds. Pause.
Pause.
But yeah, but he seemed, I think he basically, I think he had a sit down with Tucker. And what happened is Tucker tried to convince Nick that he is not a Fed. I think Nick saw past this, but he was able to kind of get a feel of a measure of the man, so to speak, and say, I still think he's a Fed, but we're not totally misaligned. And essentially that he basically says, I think having a relationship with Tucker is not as detrimental to the cause as I thought, and is actually beneficial. So I am not going to piss Tucker off. I don't think necessarily it's possible that they held up a picture of his family and was like, I'm going to kill them all if you don't do what we say. Absolutely possible. But all of these things taken together, his giddiness, I think he's relieved at his revitalized assessment of Tucker. And now that he feels comfortable enough to work with him and is being brought into the mainstream. That's just a theory. I'm not even saying that's necessarily what I 100% believe, but that is the most charitable theory that I have about the situation.
So I guess what I would say is this. For somebody who's been watching him basically every single day for the last 2 years, right? I know I've not been watching him for nearly as long as a lot of people, right? I'm the baby Groyper here. What I would say is this. I don't think it's not question of like what changed. We know that he's changed. I think the question behind it is, what's the reason for the change, right? Is this a organic like cleanup operation, right? Maybe he's getting information or advice from people, legal counsel, like maybe say this, maybe try talking like this, maybe push for these things. And then many others, all the naysayers and haters and those who are just questionable at best, would say, well, this is all evidence that he's changed and he's a Fed. I go back to kind of basically where you're at too, which is I need to see more, but where my head is at is that, yes, this looks like to be all political strategy right now. This looks to be, I mean, when you're getting, what was it? The poll was put out that has a higher chance of being president by 2045 than AOC does, right? By like 3 or 4 percentage points. Now, granted, how much stake can you put into like a betting market like that? But still, I think the idea is there. And I think all bets are off if we do get Nick into office somewhere. I think then the whole scenario of what is the status quo of American politics, I think changes at that point. I think it will show that new ideas can be held.
Absolutely. And this is my point about it, is in the same way, to kind of echo Nick's point about how people have a one-track mind, there's this idea of like, people get an idea in their head of like, what would a Fed do? But then that's just the gospel to them. It's a one-track mind. And listen, I'm totally open to the idea that Nick is a Fed. I said this on Outside the Overton. I think there is a case to be made, but the evidence will be made clear in time. This is what I said about the Israeli connection to Charlie Kirk when he died, and like the Israeli connection the day after 9/11 on September 12th. There's something there, but we don't have enough information yet. If Nick, given enough time, pads his message and basically just backtracks and he says, okay, well, now I'm not a race realist. Now, if eventually that's what the message becomes, then I think we can say he's a Fed. But I think, yeah, that's kind of my assessment of the situation.
No, I agree. And that's what I was going to add to it too, right? What are the two markers of a Fed? Well, one is like Fed posting, right? Obviously anything that kind of points to violence, right? Or doing something outside the typical way of governance. And you're not seeing much of that, right? This is still within 2 weeks of him basically lambasting Paul Miller for saying that, right? Saying that's the reason why he won't ally with Paul Miller. Like, they're friends, but I'm not going to ally with Paul Miller because like he's just an idiot and he has all these bad optics and he Fed posts constant. The other element is the subversion, which you're exactly right on. If we start seeing some tremendous changes to the rhetoric beyond just cleaning it up, right? Beyond going from 18 plus explicit to PG-13, right? And I think, though, a lot of people are looking at the clip we're going to get to here shortly, which is the very controversial one, as being a sign of that, right? And we only have a couple more clips before we get into the controversial one. But I think this is a good point that we'll cover we'll get more into Nick's rant on Wiggers, and then I think we'll cover the controversial ones. Let's do the Wigger rant. And I took this personally. No, I'm just kidding. I'm a recovering Wigger.
Yeah.
But let's get this up on screen. I'll go ahead and play it. Here we go.
Just a nigga, That's really what it means. To be a nigga, like a young nigga, a YN, is like, no one's doing any favors for me. I'm out here. I'm in the streets. My parents aren't anybody. I'm just a nigga. And a Wigger is someone that pretends to be black. A Wigger is someone that's like doing that all the time. Black people are always licking their lips like that. They're always like sticking their tongue real far out. I see white people doing this all the time. They're always doing that. Wiggers do that. Wiggers, they like suck in their teeth. They're like, what is it? How do they do it? They're like, they do that. They say, like, I don't know. They say shit like that. Wiggers sound like black people. And there's nothing more cucked than that. There's not, if you're white, talk like a white person, talk like a white guy. If you are so like, if black people have imperialized your like way of life so much that you talk like them to women, you talk like them to your friends to sound cool. What does that say? Like only black people are cool? That's like a level of cuckoldry that shouldn't even be possible. So you can't be doing that.
And that's the main point getting across there too. And the one thing I would say to this as well, he had a better, more kind of like a less inflammatory, I guess maybe less provocative take on there. And I agree with it, which is this is part of the psychological operation, which is a lot of white men seeing how their identity was basically a burden or otherwise, you know, being a barrier in terms of the sexual marketplace, all these things that, you know, looking back now that we have a bit more data, that they weren't true. But a lot of men fell into that trap, which was, I need to be anything but white, right? I need to find my identity in anything but white, because if I do accept the identity of being a white man, I'm at the bottom of the totem pole. I get made fun of, right? You become the butt of many jokes. And so I do think that that's why a lot of men, I think, did do that. And I've seen a lot of them, right? Like I'm from the boonies in Ohio. There's a lot of guys who do that, right? They wear the big LA caps, even though we're nowhere near the West Coast. They're wearing full blue. They're wearing full red. They're doing weird dances on the sidewalk. And it's like, brother, please go take care of your children. And so I agree with everything here. And this is a kind of a psychological cuckoldry that I do think we need more cultural impactful stuff like this. I would like to see more very pro-white content, but not at the expense of the other races, but just to be like, we are proud to be white. When I see a guy with a stash, right, and curly hair, and he's got his opened up Hawaiian, that's cool. Right? We don't shy away from shit like that. We talk like white guys. We sound like GLR here on this podcast, but the point being is like, you don't need to be another race to be cool, right? And I think that's the message that needs to be, pushed back to the younger white kids.
Yeah, and I'll say, have you ever actually met an authentic wigger?
I used to be
I've
one.
met one. No. You're not an authentic wigger.
Listen, you don't know me from 5 years ago, man. It used to be bad. I promise you. But I know what you're talking about.
If you were an authentic wigger, you would still be one. I met a guy at App State that I was like, if this were the 50s, he would still be this way. Like, and I don't say that like he was frightening to me. Like he was scarier than like ghetto black people to me because it was authentic. Like this dude will be on his deathbed like, shit, man, but it wasn't like, yo, man, what's up, player? Like Eminem type stuff. This was like, what's good, man? Like he had been through it. But the point being is like, I think the whole thing is like the wigger is just a different flavor of LARP. Guys,
right? Stop
LARPing. This includes, and Nick talks about this too, the country, the like a hillbilly stuff. The country LARPing, I'm gonna wear my boots and go to Morgan Wallen concert. And then they get home and they shed the accent and everything. It's all enough of the LARP. Just be yourself, dude.
Well, it turns out, dude, I promise. Listen, I have beef with country people. I swear, country is for all the people who like refuse to come out of the closet. They just adopt their country. I don't know if I've met a straight white dude who likes country music. Like every single one of them, like, there's something up with you, dude. It's like, I know why you bought those bigger beads, man. It's disgusting. But
what
it's
the hell?
And listen, I do have personal beef with the country. And again, recovering wigger, so I'll never listen to country music. I like rap. I'm moving into more, because I can't listen to rap music. It gets my impulses. If I'm listening to rap music in the Dollar Tree, I start stealing things. So I have to stop. And so beyond that, though,
oh my gosh.
There is another thing I would add to this. There's a smaller element. And for anybody who listens to like music when they're working out, there is a very strong impact that it has on you. And it's something that I noticed years ago. And when I was doing a lot of, intense lifting, as I used to be a former personal trainer, I noticed that when I listened to like very heavy rap music, I would be angry at the end of my workouts. I shouldn't be like pissed off at the end of my workouts, right? And at least, not to the degree that I felt I was, and not even just angry in general, but I was like looking at other people like they're enemies almost. But there is a strong impact of rap music, and music has impact in general, so pay attention to that.
I'm learning so much about you, Atlas. I had no idea you were this much
tune into offensively
of a
accurate.
recovering wigger.
Yeah.
Oh, that's funny.
Yeah,
I have to
pass.
disagree. I don't think I don't get the beef with country music. I like this is what I say. I like music when it's good. There's good country music.
Disagree.
So do you think Zeb is gay?
Dude, I think I told that to Zeb the first day I met him. I think Zeb's gay and he's a Fed. He's a two-timer, man.
Oh, damn, that's funny. Well, Zeb is definitely a Fed. I found his badge.
Oh, you did? You did?
Yeah, I found all the recordings.
Did it automatically go into your iPhone wallet too? Like it tagged you? Now you're a Fed.
Yeah, exactly.
But okay, you ready to cover the controversial one?
Let's get into it.
All right. So, guys, this is the most controversial clip we're about to cover from this week, and this happened on Thursday, the last day that he did a show this week. And the funniest thing I saw about it was, there's some smaller points about it, but the funniest thing I saw was one of the other Nick Clippers, I think this was Grimaldis, quote tweeted Kaiser Rev with the famous meme of the guy crying holding the gun. And it was like me shooting Kaiser Rev for posting the worst Nick clip of all time. And dude, that got me so good. But this one is about ethnicity. It's about birthright citizenship. It's about who we are going to unite with. And so, ladies and gentlemen, here is the controversial clip.
Get some backbone. Get the courage of your convictions. If you're out there, and by the way, I don't care what color you are. I know maybe that's going to be controversial on my side. But seriously, if you have citizenship, if you were born in this country, this is your birthright. This is our lives. This is our rights. This is our heritage. It's our tax dollars. It's our government. It's our military. This is our country. This is our empire. I'll unite with anybody who proclaims America first above all other countries, including and especially Israel. And they're on the other side of this one, and they're wrong. They need to be put back in their place. Anybody who says that America should come second needs to be reminded your place is number 2. America's number 1. Anything else, it's not even number 2. It's number 100. It's America first, second, third, fourth, fifth. That's what we're about. Anyway.
So this was controversial for the biggest reason of all, being that Nick said, color to him, he'll unite with anybody. Color doesn't matter. But I think more so it was the actionable word after that, which was, I have the direct quote here from Kaiser Rev. I don't care what color you are. If you were born in this country, this is your birthright. This is our country. This is our empire. Your thoughts, Josh?
Yeah, I think you actually said it very succinctly on Offensively Accurate last night, which is, I think it's an unfortunate turn of phrase. I think, and I'm victim to this. Nick is very articulate. He's very well spoken. And if, you could be forgiven for even thinking he's reading off a sheet. You watch our show, you watch Outside the Overton, and I'm hemming and like I stutter all the time. I have plenty of uhs and long pauses between my sentences because I'm stringing thoughts together on the fly. I think it's he's basically stringing two thoughts together, which is what he's always said. This has to be a pro-white America First movement. But if you're what's the guy starts with a T? He's got a black guy that like is a fan of his.
Tenjiro.
Do you know who I'm talking about? What was it?
Tenjiro? Yeah.
Yeah, him. Like he's willing to work with that guy. And I think that's what he was trying to get across is he's trying to say, because think about, he said before, this is our heritage. Do you think he is now all of a sudden including Vivek Ramaswamy and that is now including like just any black guy in that's
no,
America First?
But
no.
if he does,
I think he's
that's the change of rhetoric. You would go, he's a Fed. Like if that is the expansion of that argument, but my bad, go ahead.
No, absolutely. If that's what he meant, then yeah, then he's clearly a Fed. But that's the thing is, it's like, but think about it like this. Don't start from the clip. Start from what the clip implies is that, okay, he got federalized, he's a deputy now. He got deputized by Tucker Carlson into the CIA or whatever, FBI. And Tucker Carlson said, go hard against Israel, go hard against J.D. Vance like he has been this entire week, but you can't be a race realist anymore. That's why they assimilated him so that he could become pro meritocracy. I mean, it's possible. It's possible, but I think it's simpler, and time will tell. Time will tell. He hasn't responded, and he didn't do a show after this clip, so we don't really know what he says. But assuming the pressure keeps up, the controversy of this clip keeps up, I guarantee he'll address it.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm sure someone will ask about it in super chats, and if they don't, then I will.
Right.
Yeah, I think it's just an unfortunate turn of phrase.
Well, a couple of things with that. The first thing I would say is, I don't know if it was a turn of phrase. I don't know, and here's why. A couple
Slip
of things.
of the tongue, I mean.
Yeah, and I thought about it in a few different ways, and my overall thought though when I saw that was, if the idea here is that, and it seems to be that MAGA, the Israel First, that kind of coalition seems to be like we have our boots on their neck essentially, metaphorically. It's like we're very close to basically throwing them out of like the social media side of like being prominent right-wing people. And I think strategically in there, would you not want to recruit as many people as possible, like Infinity War, to make sure like this is done? Like we get the villain and then we'll worry about afterwards the rest of it. I could see that being a thing there. Also, when you look at the actual, what would have to go into repealing the 14th Amendment? Right? Because that's what we're talking about, right? Birthright citizenship. We saw that the federal courts rejected Trump's executive order. Well, a few of them did. Supreme Court backed him up on them not being nationally, not the federal court that block them, not having national effects. But the reality is if we do go down this path, right, which I would like to, and I agree with this, I mean, the steps you would have to go through, right, is, what's the first one? 2/3 supermajority vote in both the House and the Senate. The second thing from there is that the amendment would then have to be ratified by 38 out of 50 states. Two things that I don't think are possible right now. And then you add on top of that too, what is the demographics in this country? What's 58% white? And then 42% whatever the hell else. And so this idea that, we're going to be able to strategically win without taking some of those, and even of that 58% white people, split that down the middle. You have women that'll vote whichever way their husbands tell them, and then you have crazy liberal women. And then even among the men, you have men that are going to vote liberal no matter what. And so when you think about it, when I thought about it strategically, I actually agreed. It was like, we're going to have to get some of them behind the idea of America first. And so that's kind of where I'm at. It's like strategically, and say we did go the other way, right? Say you scrap it and you say, F the system, we don't need to do that. We're going to do it in executive order, which I think some people would say, right? We'll just circumvent the entire process. I don't think you're going to get that either. I think when the current makeup of the Supreme Court, they would reject that executive order on the basis of you have multiple constitutionalists on there. I don't think the Supreme Court that wouldn't hear out the voting cases just a couple of years ago are going to approve of an executive order that circumvents the entire ratification process of the amendment. So I think on both avenues you have to explore that. I think the strategy is going to have to require us trying the standard route, which will be to get the supermajority in both the House and the Senate. And what does that imply? That implies you're going to have to ally with some people, right? Because even if it was just white, 58% is not a supermajority, right? Even if we were to completely be represented, 1-for-1 in the ratio of America, that's why I think strategically, I kind of agree here, which is like, if we want to get the first thing, first and foremost, get Israel out of politics, we're going to have to unite with basically everybody that agrees with America first, regardless if they agree with with our definition of what is an American. And then I think we can kind of hash things out in steps. We don't need everything all at once, if that makes sense.
Yeah. And I think, You actually raise a good point, and I do agree with you because, to be fair, I've encountered some people since doing Outside the Overton with Zeb, people in our audience. This idea that I personally have never had, which, it's like we acknowledge America's heritage. America was founded, created, developed, and is promulgated by Europeans. That it's a European nation. Definitionally, that's what it is.
Yep.
But that being said, there's never been a moment in our nation's history where there weren't non-white people in the country as well. There's always been the Native Americans. There were slaves. I'm not saying that therefore it's like just as equally their baby as it is ours. Clearly, that's not what we're saying.
Right.
But this idea that, okay, and I would say they were a burden back then too. But this idea that, well, because they have been and continue to be a burden, the solution and therefore the goal must be to just expel every non-white person from the country. I don't think that's possible. And I actually think to have that as the stated goal, it wouldn't necessarily even solve the problems we think it would. And I think, as you say, it's just not realistic.
Well, right.
Would
in
it
the
be
pragmatic
better
sense.
on paper? Sure.
Right.
But America we're on board with Donald Trump, make America great again. There were Native Americans and blacks and Hispanics in the country when America was great. America was great in the 50s. We want it to be majority white and run by whites. And the thing is right now, we've got a lot of problems. And we can say, so like, I'm willing to work with a Dr. Ben Carson. I think a Dr. Ben Carson, yeah, he's got his problems, but everyone's got their problems. I would rather have 100 Dr. Ben Carsons than one Randy Fine.
No.
Than one Ilhan Omar.
Easily. Why'd you think of like Myron Gaines? Like, how could anyone push him out of the movement right now with as much as he's done, specifically with like men and women?
Exactly. That's like, I don't agree with Paul Miller on that, where we just can't like interact with these people at all. I think that's unrealistic, and I think it's stupid. But the last thing I'll say about it is this, which essentially is, we do have to coalition build. I think this is a goal, and pick our battles. We can say that we can work with a Dr. Ben Carson, but we have to get the inward worship out. The boomers, they love Vivek Ramaswamy. They kiss his feet because they're exposed anyway, because he's a brown guy, because they get off on the idea that we are going to be that, oh, I'm invited to the cookout. The boomers love this fantasy, and we know, like we're young. We've seen it. It's not realistic. You might get invited to the cookout. You're a Wigger after all. but this idea, like the whole country, we're all just going to be buddies. It's going to be like The Help or something. Get rid of that. That's not happening.
Yeah, well, and I would take it one step further. I mean, we can't even get rid of EBT without threatening that the country will go into full civil war or protest in the summer of love again. So imagine saying, we're going to make you second-class citizens. We're going to remove your citizenship. You're going to be relegated. You're going to lose voting rights. You're going to be moved. You're going to be not seen as a heritage American. I'm just like, I try to rack my brain. Like, how do we do, if we can't even get food stamps out of the country without fear of like 40 million Americans rioting? What happens when it's like 100 million Americans? What happens when it's 115 million Americans? It's like, and then too, I also think like the average state of the white guy, right? Imagine the average like white guy dad who, he's watching football on Sundays. He's 40 pounds overweight, and he's in the south side of Chicago when that news gets announced. He ain't making it out of that grocery store, like ain't even gonna have a chance. And so that's why I think, you might not like that, but I am a pragmatist, right? I largely consider myself a student of Jeff Younger. Like that's where a lot of my kind of ideas on politics come from, or was shaped from after I kind of got into this, which is like, I am a realist. I think about the first, second, and third level of like, okay, we say this, now how does it happen? How does it get put into law? Who's going to put it into law? What are the systems that get there? And then when I put that language up to the test and I thought about it, well, what would it take actually to change the definition of what is an American, right? In law. And that goes all the way to the 14th Amendment. I mean, listen, dude, if we can't ever repeal the 19th, bro, good luck with 14. And I think maybe the 19th is a more important one to actually even go after before we go after the 14th, in terms of what would be consequential to it. But any final thoughts on that?
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's the thing, because Zeb and I on Outside the Overton, we argue all the time about when will we see our vision, the new American vision, when will it be realized? Well, it depends on what you mean. If routing out Jewish control to the point where we have sovereignty apart from like basically Jewish intervention, I do think that's possible, especially with how fast things are going after October 7th. That's possible maybe within the next 10, 15 years, who knows? But getting rid of civil rights, repealing the 19th Amendment, that is 100 years away. We will not see that in our lifetimes, most likely.
I'm praying for it though. But we do have a question.
praying
This is from Gen Z Goy, and forgive me because I'm not sure why it's not popping up when I clicked on it. But Gen Z Goy says, "Do we think Trump is creating a secret police for Israel?" And I would say that half of that's probably already in effect. When you look at stuff with Project Esther, I always forget her name because it's the most foreign name of all time. But when she was arrested in plainclothes, I mean, even Tim Dillon came out with a statement of like, what the hell is this? She wrote an article, basically an op-ed against Israel that was pro-Palestinian, and that was enough to basically throw her in the back of a bus and get rid of her visa. And I think the point is they're testing it on the college campuses. It will probably spread throughout. I'm not, and we're going to touch a little bit on Kevin Roberts and the Heritage Foundation. But this statement, I mean, he went through a struggle session, and we're kind of getting ahead of ourselves. We'll get to it here in a second, but I don't know. Possibly, I think the extent would be to who and what authority do they have over? Is it just a secret police for Israel on college campuses? Is there a special college campus police to kind of limit the brain sponge of the nation, which is college campuses? I don't know. I mean, there was a second one I thought too, but maybe not. Never mind. Okay, the next one we're going to get into is actually some more exciting stuff. This would be more of a mainstay riff from Nick Fuentes, and that is the fact that J.D. Vance is getting groyped. And he made a couple promises to what to expect, if any of this rhetoric changes from J.D., because, again, J.D. Vance's rhetoric has had a monstrous change ever since the Tucker Carlson and Nick interview. I mean, it was a crazy pivot from J.D. Vance going on this Ole Miss TPUSA event. But here is Nick Fuentes talking about the Groyper squeeze and what that entails.
Vance is getting squeezed, and he's going to have to make a decision. J.D. Vance, our vice president, spoke at Turning Point USA last night, and he held a Q&A session, just like the Groyper Wars, just like Charlie Kirk. And he was met with one Groyper question after the other. They said, "Tell us about your connections with Palantir. Why did you marry a Hindu if you're a Christian?" They said, "Is the United States controlled by Israel?" And J.D. Vance had to pander to his new Groyper base. He said, "Well, this president isn't controlled by Israel. America must come before Israel." He said, "The Jews don't believe in our Messiah." He said, "I married Usha when I was agnostic, but I hope she converts to Christianity." And the Israel lobby was not happy with his answers. The Israel lobby said, "JD, why did you not take that opportunity to forcefully condemn anti-Semitism? These were the wrong answers. How could you say that this president isn't owned by Israel? Do you mean that other presidents were owned by Israel?" He's getting squeezed because the Groypers are on the one hand saying, "Hey, listen, fat boy, we want America first. You want to run for president? We want to hear you say America first." And on the other side, he's got his donors, and they're saying they're horrible anti-Semites. You have to disavow them. You have to forcefully condemn them. Condemn Tucker. Condemn the Groypers. Now, if Vance condemns the Groypers, we are deploying to Iowa. Raise your right hand. I swear I'm going to move to Iowa and New Hampshire and Nevada and South Carolina and one primary after the next. And we will go to every town hall. We will go to every meet and greet where there's 4 or 5 people, and we will be there. And we'll do it for free. People will drive there for free, and they will follow Vance around and ask him, "When will you put America first? Why would you condemn the young white men of America? and sell out to our elites. We'll be there. We'll be in Iowa. We'll be in every primary and caucus state. So he doesn't want to condemn the Groypers. But if he doesn't, then Adelson is going to pull the plug. If he doesn't condemn the Groypers, then all the Israel First money is going to pull the plug. And J.D. Vance might find himself defunded. And all that money is going to pour into the coffers of Marco Rubio or some other competitor. That's the Groyper squeeze. This is politics. Okay? Now this is pod racing. Are you starting to get it now? Now it's starting to make sense. I'm glad you're finally putting it together. This is why we must always demand more. People say, well, if we attack Vance, who are we going to get in 28? You're telling us not to vote Republican? We had to do those things to show that we were serious. We had to do those things. It's not about the votes. It's about sending a message. We had to let JD know and the GOP know that our votes are conditional. You want our votes? You have to give us something. And if you don't give us anything, we won't vote for you, and we'd be happy to see you lose. That's called leverage. And when you engage somebody on the basis of leverage in a negotiation, that means you're equals. That means you have a seat at the table. It's all those idiots, it's all the suckers that wait outside the meeting room for the two parties to walk outside to get told what the deal is going to be. We'll vote for JD no matter what. Tell us what it's going to be. Tell us what we have to swallow next. That's all of you idiots like Andrew Isker, John Doyle. That's all of you shit-eating suckers that will eat anything they serve up to you from the GOP because you'll vote for them no matter what because you're not ready to play hardball.
Forgive me, I was muted.
Uh-oh.
I loved it.
Oh, yeah.
I thought that was perfect. Now, I think what's funny with that too is a lot of people not understanding the obviously the strategy behind a lot of these things. One thing I'm kind of curious to hear you, because I'm sure you have a better idea of actually explaining it than myself, but I heard Zeb kind of give a take that was he doesn't believe that Nick would be able to muster those numbers or it would be impactful in any kind of way. You want to expand on that?
I don't. Okay, so Zeb, he said that he doesn't think Nick can muster 10,000 people to go to basically thwart JD Vance. And honestly, I'm not a numbers guy. Like I
can tell.
But basically, who cares? Like the question is, do I think Nick can corral enough people to thwart JD Vance by going and campaigning against him in the Iowa caucus, in New Hampshire, in South Carolina? Absolutely. Now, is it 10,000? Who cares?
Yeah, there's a question of, and thanks for subscribing, guys. Hopefully you like the new little GIFs we have put up there. I don't want to address this question until we just got here as well. My thing is, let me just go to the question first. He says, is making Vance weaker in favor of Rubio smart? And that's actually something I've not thought about before, which is, it's, we had to say it's never Vance, but I don't think anyone needed to say never Rubio because you don't need to say what's understood. But that is a question, but I don't think Marco Rubio commands that much presence or influence, and I don't think he'd be able to even go, anywhere, ultimately, especially with JD Vance having so much AstroTurf already. But I guess the idea is clear, though. Do you think that JD Vance is going to have to continue to pander to Groypers throughout, or was this kind of a temporary thing? Do you think this is going to stay?
I think Nick is here to stay. I think that JD Vance, he's like Nick said, he's towing a fine line. He's having to appease the Israeli lobby while also appeasing the Groypers. And the truth is I don't think that's possible. I think eventually he's going to have to lean one way or another. And the question will then become, if it comes down to the left is totally radicalized and they're going to come back with a vengeance in 2028, and JD Vance is the guy, and Nick says, well, maybe we have to go behind JD Vance, would that be a betrayal? Probably. But
Yeah.
I don't, time will tell. And that's my thing is I'm reminded of a super chat that was sent in a few weeks ago where someone said, okay, someone that is pro JD Vance was like, okay, you don't like JD Vance. Who would you prefer? And Nick said, there's no one out there. There's no one out there that I know about just yet, but we still got a ways till 2028. That doesn't mean someone will come up, and ideally someone would. I mean, think about it. People were probably having conversations similar to this in 2014, in 2013, before Donald Trump came on the scene. You know, to make these statements about what definitely should happen in the 2028 campaigns, to say that now, and then in 2028, when the whole metric has changed, there's upset candidates, there's people that we like better than Rubio, or people that better than Rubio and Vance, and saying, well, now you're backtracking. It's kind of up in the air.
I completely agree. And that's one thing I think that they are terrified of, which is why I think they have to pivot the rhetoric, because, I mean, just like we saw with Donald Trump, right? He was at the bottom of the totem pole, and then next thing you know, he wins presidency. And I think that they are terrified that some candidate may come out of literally nowhere, and he's going to say, my number one thing is getting Israel influence out of this country. And he's going to sweep across the nation. No one's even going to know who this guy is, but there's power in that. And I do think that they do fear, if they don't begin to match that rhetoric, that some guy out of nowhere can just come up and just say, you know what, I'm running out of this. You know, I've been paying attention to politics long enough, but I do think the number one issue that faces America is Israel's control over it. I mean,
have you ever seen Jimmy Neutron?
Yeah. No.
I just had a brain blast, dude. It's going to be Tucker. Tucker is going to run in 2028.
Do you think so? Well, listen, Steve Bannon, supposedly there was a report that Steve Bannon had begun the process of applying for a presidential ticket. Bannon Tucker, Banner Carlson. Bannon Carlson, forgive me.
Now, like I'm kind of being a hypocrite here because, you know, I was basically dogging on Zeb for speculating when we were talking about the Charlie Kirk Israeli connection. I'm like, you're going off of so much that you just can't know. That is what I'm doing here, but we're just having fun. We're speculating here. I wouldn't be surprised, Fed or not, if there's some kind of under the table coalition building with Bannon, Carlson, and whoever. And basically Tucker let Nick in on the take, and Nick, that could mean he's a Fed, but that could mean he's okay with whatever this coalition is. But I would not be surprised, good or bad, if Tucker Carlson was talking about running in 2028. He is keeping it so far under the table.
Yeah.
Because he doesn't want the attention. Because if that gets out now, then they have 3 years to dig up whatever they can on him and to attack him in any way that they possibly could. JD Vance is clearly running in 2028, and Marco Rubio will likely as well, Ron DeSantis. But Ron DeSantis has been through the rigmarole before. Everyone is digging up whatever they can on Vance now. The Democrats, they've got all their talking points. With Tucker, if Tucker comes in and is the upset candidate, and Nick is there to kind of back him up, I'm starting to think there's some plausibility there, dude.
Wouldn't that be crazy? You see a ticket that says Carlson Fuentes in like 2032 or whatever, whenever Nick can like run or something like that.
Oh, dude. Well, yeah, because he won't be 35 by then.
I think you're onto something. And that was something I thought about just then, which was like, I think everyone would be lying to themselves if they say there was, what looked to be a coalition, right? That was similar to the Republicans or Democrats. And they said, listen, they would go, we agree with you so far as America first, you know, but we still don't agree with you with race realism in this, but we do agree, you know, America needs to be in its own best interest. We need to remove that. I think most people would say, I would jump ship there, right? Like, I know it's still not 100% aligned with where I'm at, but that is a better platform than what the Republicans are currently offering. And so if Nick's seen that, right, there is a secret coalition, right? Maybe he was let in on the take there, that they're building that maybe with Massey, Dave Smith, MTG, kind of the same usual voices we would expect. then I would say yes, because that's the idea of incrementalism, right? Like that would be the idea of incrementalism. Like, isn't the whole goal 100%, satisfied here, but we're getting 48% satisfied here, and then expect in 4 years maybe we get that to 63% and continue like chipping away. And so if that's kind of the thought process here, I'm totally down with it. In terms of numbers, though, well, I wanted to just go back a little bit on the numbers thing, because I know Zeb thinks that 10,000, that maybe it's way too many numbers. My thing again would go back to the meteoric generational rise. Yeah, I don't think people from Chicago no longer need to drive to Iowa because fans became fans in Iowa who are from Iowa. So maybe you'll get people who previously weren't Groypers, but maybe this go around will show themselves at these Iowa, press conferences and such. But forgive me for interrupting you. What were you going to say?
I don't know. I was just going to say, I think to basically echo your point that I think there's this idea that because essentially even when Trump gets in, our side, the real America Firsters, the Groypers, we're always losing. They promise big and they never, ever, ever deliver. That now what our side kind of wants is anything other than total victory is a loss as well. And it's easy to see, it's easy to understand why people think that way. I feel that way. And but the point I'm making is I do agree with you that, like, as long as we're not losing, as long as progress is getting made, like if Donald Trump gets in and he's not stopping the war in Ukraine, but he's keeping Israel from starting any new conflicts and is constructing the border wall at the same time, I would consider that a successful Trump presidency. If that was all that was accomplished. But the problem is literally nothing is being accomplished. And if anything, we're losing ground, which is not good. We have the House, we have the Senate, and Trump is dragging his feet. He's giving it away.
Well, I would say it even goes worse than just like not getting stuff done. I mean, like this Trump presidency has basically whatever percentage of trust was left in the system. Trump destroyed it. I mean, he ripped the rest of it out, and largely not even just him. I think Kash Patel and Pam Bondi are actually more culpable of that. But again, who brought them in? Trump. And that's kind of the saddest part, which is like the people who are supposed to be the most transparent administration ever, because they made all these promises and then failed on literally every single one. I think you basically took the wind out of most people's sails that had been building from 2016, which was, oh, maybe we can fight against this gay and fakeness. We haven't seen a chance. And I think by that standard alone, there's very few things outside of extreme legacy moves by Trump that he could do to save this presidency. This presidency is a failure so far from Donald Trump. But to move on to the next thing, though, one thing I wanted to show is the side of Nick that most people probably don't see, and a lot of it is actually shown out in the super chats, and I need to be a better job of actually paying attention to some of these super chats because they're good. And that would be this. And that would be his message on Jesus Christ. And I know people, already have their convictions on Fuentes, but I still argue that Nick says things very succinctly and better than a lot of the pundits and pastors I hear all the time. But here's a clip to show you the side of Nick that I think a lot of people forget that there is.
This is a Christian nation. Jesus Christ is our king, and our laws and our government should be inspired by Christ. Not just the Bible, not just the Old Testament. No, the person of Jesus Christ. And let's not make any mistakes here. Let's not make any rounding errors. Don't get it twisted. They like to say biblical. They like to say Old Testament, Hebrew Bible. That's all great. But without the person of Jesus Christ, no one gets to God. So, no. Actually, and maybe this is controversial, but I'll be the one to say it. The man, the God-man, the hypostatic union, Jesus Christ, he was real, he is real, he was God, he is God. Before any of us were born, before anything was created, he is God, co-eternal and begotten by the Father. That takes precedence, actually. People say the Hebrew Bible, people say biblical, people say Abrahamic. I'm going to pretend like I don't speak English. I don't know what those words mean. The only language I understand is Jesus Christ is God. That's the foundation. That's our moral code. He didn't say the Bible is the way, the truth, and the life. He said, I am. And that's an important distinction. Jesus Christ is king.
Hell yeah, dude. Oh, you're muted. You're muted.
My bad. My wife's doing something in the kitchen, so I had to start muting myself. But I love
Hell
it.
yeah. That's where she should. Okay.
Right.
Mrs.
No, I agree.
AtlasThugged, I apologize.
No, dude, you're
Go about
totally
your
fine.
business.
She can't even hear you. Well, maybe she'll listen to this and ring me later on. But I love it. I mean, like, Jesus Christ is king. Like, and the way he said some things too, right? It's just very powerful, right? He didn't say the Bible is, he said, I am. And I love that stuff. And this is kind of like the message that I think doesn't get shown as much, right? You don't see Nick Fuentes being clipped for this, like, ever. And, you know, just a continual reminder, like, this is just from this week. And to remind people, you can find these comments, these sentiments every show, every day of the week. Well, when he goes live, sometimes he doesn't go live some days. But that's the stuff that I love, right? Which is being very provocative, being over the top, forward facing, edgy, pushing things in people's faces they can't shy away from. And then on top of it going, Christ is king. Jesus is God, is God, always was the beginning and the end. I love that stuff. Your thoughts on that?
Dude, this is one of the reasons I love Nick is he gets me amped up about my faith. Because look, I'm not a perfect man. I'll admit I'm not exactly combing through scripture every day of my life. But when I do, I get filled with the Holy Spirit. And, you know, I'll be honest, politics, it's obviously it's an occupation of mine, but it's also a distraction. And so Nick, he always brings it back home, even though he's Catholic and I'm not Catholic. He always brings it home to we can't lose sight of what this is all about. This, at the end of the day, what does it mean to be America first? It means a lot of things, but at the end of the day, the most important thing is this is a Christian country. And why does that matter? Because our God, because Jesus Christ is the one true God. He is a man, he lived, he died, he lives again, and he's here. He is with us. This is why I don't advocate for watching Passion of the Christ or The Chosen. You don't need to see that stuff. Jesus is personal. You can have a relationship with the real living God today. You can talk to him right now. That is what this is all about. We cannot lose sight of that. So I appreciate that through all of it, he kind of recalibrates and brings everyone back to that truth.
Yeah, amen. And this is what I was going to add to this clip here as well, is there was, after the controversial clip in the same show, because the controversial clip came from Thursday around about an hour in, was about 15 minutes straight right after that clip talking about how America is a Christian nation. And that pushes me back towards, again, like this idea of what he had said in the controversial clip, not meaning what everybody's kind of making it out to be, and more so my strategic objective. Because it's kind of, it would be overtly obvious to the audience to be holding too many different contradictory kind of ideas. But it is the stuff I love. And this is the stuff that's like, you know, I think like, why do I only hear it from Fuentes? And not to say only, right? Obviously, Joel Webman, Stone Choir, there's many other actors in the space now. But the idea, though, is like, why do I only hear it digitally? Where is this at when I go out, you know, outside in the real world? You know, and I brought this up yesterday on my show, but I have a big beef with Protestantism right now because I gave them another chance at another Lutheran church that I got in, got involved with my wife because that's her background. And the day after the Charlie Kirk assassination, or 4 days after the Charlie Kirk assassination, you know whose name was not mentioned? Charlie Kirk. I've went back a couple of times since then just because I do feel like it's a good thing. You need to be in church on Sundays. But man, it just pisses me off every time I go. It's like these fake people, just cowards, right? Maybe less so fake, but just cowards. And with that, though, I think we need to get into the Kevin Roberts struggle session. Do you know much about Kevin Roberts? So I need to kind of give a bit of an opener, give some context.
I do not. Fill me in.
So Kevin Roberts admits, I think it was like the day after that Tucker Carlson had Nick Fuentes on, a statement came out of nowhere from the president of the Heritage Foundation, Kevin Roberts. And it was about a 3-minute
okay.
clip from Kevin Roberts. And he basically talks about how he does abhor what Nick says, but his overall point being was like, he's not going to disavow Tucker, and they're not in the business of canceling people. He said that goes against the beliefs of the Heritage Foundation. But what followed that was worse. Following that, I don't even know if he made it to like early morning the next day, he does write an expanded statement, a post on X, basically detailing heavily all of his issues with Nick Fuentes' rhetoric and kind of going off of what a leftist would argue about him. But even worse was Dana Loesch hosted Kevin Roberts on her show called The First. And it is a 35-minute struggle session. Now, I think some of the worst, I have it timestamped here from the 20-minute mark. I encourage everybody to watch this. This is the game plan. This was Kevin Roberts thinking that having the gall as an American citizen, not asking or calling a Jew to get consent for putting out a statement of his own organization for their own beliefs and being ran around the ringer. So this is a post here from, oh, not this one. Hold on, let me wait for this one to disappear. This is a post from Dana Loesch, and it's around the 20-minute mark is where it gets really bad, and you can really kind of see where a lot of this is going. We'll probably play it up to the 24-minute mark, but the whole thing is loaded with this. And the point I would really want to make clear here too is throughout there as well, Dana Loesch makes so many of these like small remarks, and you can tell she's like almost trying to get a rise out of Kevin almost. Or that she at least has the confidence that he knows he's going to be a good little doggy and he's not going to say anything beyond the pale, beyond agreeing with what she has to say. So here we have it. I have the 1955 mark. Let's go ahead and take a listen, guys.
Hopefully small group of people, mostly in Washington, who have some really nefarious agendas of their own.
It seems because a lot of people I get what they're saying. A lot of people feel confusion because they feel as though their criticisms, which seem to be scripturally based, are being maligned as the division that is being sown, or that's what is being described as venomous. And I think a lot of individuals find that hard to reconcile, especially when it's said in defense of someone who would say that they hate Christian Zionists, or they hate people like Mike Huckabee or Ted Cruz because they support, Israel as a U.S. ally. Why doesn't that description go both ways?
That description can go both ways. What we're trying to do is eliminate that kind of venom both directions.
Is it venomous to say that you hate Christian Zionists?
Oh, of course it is. I've been really clear, not just yesterday and today, but my entire career, that and the Heritage certainly has in its entire existence, that those kinds of things are just abhorrent. I said that literally yesterday.
Because Tucker said those things. So that would be, is that not sowing division?
It's certainly not helpful, but it doesn't mean that he ought to be canceled, because if in fact,
well, that's not the question. It's not whether he should be canceled. Is that sowing division to say things like that?
Oh, it's certainly in a lot of our friends' minds. But the point.
But you didn't put that in your statement, though.
Because the proximity or the context for the statement was something very different. And that was, as we were talking about a few minutes ago, all of the pressure that Heritage was receiving to cancel Tucker, which is just not, we wouldn't do that to you. We wouldn't do that to him. We wouldn't do it to friends who have other ideas, because ultimately what that looks like is sort of the purges of the French or Russian Revolution, and we get a conservative
right. And I don't mean to interrupt you. I don't disagree with you necessarily in terms of in terms of some of the comparisons. But what you call cancellation, I saw people trying to have some accountability and say, well, this seems like this only goes one way. Heritage put out a statement calling everyone who criticizes this, venomous and sowing division, but yet they were silent when, there was criticism of Ben Shapiro, accusing him of basically being an agent of Israel, or going after Mark Levin for something similar, or going after Mike Huckabee or Ted Cruz. And so how is that not canceling of those individuals, but criticism of the way Tucker handled his interview considered cancellation? That seems entirely hypocritical.
Look, what Tucker does. Heritage.
But I'm talking about your statement though that you released.
No, which I was about to address.
Go ahead. Sorry.
Heritage was not engaged in those comments about those people. I don't support those comments for those other friends in the movement. But the key point is, even in spite of that, it doesn't mean that we were going to call for the cancellation of Tucker. We're not going to call for the cancellation of anybody. We think that's ultimately counterproductive to the conversation that we need to have.
That's basically how the entire thing goes. It's aggressive, and I didn't get the timestamp for it because I couldn't bear to listen to it again the second time to find it. She makes a point that was wild, which is supposedly he's going to come out with another statement. And she says, she has a comment which is like, well, wow, I hope that's reflected in your newer statement. Like, it is very obvious who Dana Loesch's team is, and it's not America's. She's on the payroll for somebody, and she's part of this venomous coalition of Christian Zionists who are basically tag teaming Kevin Roberts to no end to make him make a more canceling statement of Tucker Carlson. And it seems like he's unwilling to do that to Tucker. And the only statements I've seen from him since that have followed is more against Nick. He did a few other shows, this seemingly being the biggest one. But I'm also curious, like, what are your thoughts, Josh?
Yeah, that sucked, dude. That was a tough watch. I don't blame you for not going back through it again. She's a venomous woman. She is, I can't imagine being married to someone like that. She seems like a total bitch. And I feel bad. What's the guy's name again?
Kevin Roberts.
Kevin Roberts. So clearly what he's doing is he's trying to save his own ass. You know, he got called out they removed Tucker Carlson from the website. And for whatever reason, he doesn't want to be on the outs with Tucker Carlson. I think there's good reasons for that. So he's like, no, this is not. And then what do you get? You get this Jewish woman who's like, well, it's a dangerous message. What are you going to do? Come on. You know, and like, it's funny to me is I'm not a free speech absolutist. I don't know about what you feel about that, Atlas. I actually think we should, I think we should restrict speech to a certain extent, but it's speech that has been tried and we know is bad, like pro-Zionism stuff, anti-Christian stuff. I think that stuff should be censored to a certain extent. I'm not saying you can't have open debate. You know, sunlight is the best disinfectant. But my point being is like, they're treating what Tucker Carlson says, which to us, what Tucker Carlson says about Israel is extremely tame. They're treating Tucker Carlson like he's getting on television or he's getting on YouTube, Twitter, and he's saying, I think it's okay to have sex with a newborn baby fresh out of the womb. They're treating it like that. It's like something where it's like, yeah, we don't have to have a conversation about that. Everyone knows that's awful. And but to them, simply saying foreign aid to Israel isn't good, which is what Tucker's saying. Tucker's not saying to abandon Israel. He's saying, do we have to send them this much money? Do they get carte blanche over what we do with our armies, with our money when we're in dire straits and they're being provocative? You know, they're clearly not defending themselves.
Right.
Ridiculous.
Yeah. No, I do consider myself a bit of a free speech absolutist. I do agree with your arguments, though, on things like blasphemy laws. I mean, we used to have very basic, like, I always forget what they're called, but, non-vulgar, like, right? Like there used to be a strong, like, Christian grasp on Hollywood, for a short period of time where they would basically be like, hey, you need to clean this up, or you need to make sure you're not being too vulgar, etc. Where it is now, I can no longer willingly place much faith in the government for doing anything correct like that. And so, we'll say that, right? Put in law, it's the same way they did with the trans extremism. Be like, can you put into law, a law that bans or makes illegal speech that is pro-Zionist, right? And they'll go, okay, definitely. And then what they'll put in the law is we're banning all religious speech. And it's like, dude, that's not what we asked for, right? It's like, that's kind of what we would get with the government doing it. So I wouldn't put too much faith in there on that end. The other thing with this too is they like she did multiple times. I don't know if she did it in that clip. I think she did it once, but she's like, well, the positions that we have that are entirely scripturally based, and there's no argument there. And she's like adding that in there, and it's like, no, that's the point. The point is that like we are arguing that you're entirely wrong. We're arguing that you're the heretic here. We're arguing that you're not even Christian by your own definition. Like, and so that part does bother me because I think she's using that to her advantage. And I do think the exact quote from Tucker was, I despise them, in reference to Christian Zionists. But it is a problem. I just don't know if making that speech illegal is the way to solve it. I'm not sure.
Uh-oh. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Okay, sorry about that. The screen shut down, but I've got the stream.
You are lagged out, actually. Yeah, looks like Josh just lost all of his internet connection. Go ahead and disconnect, Josh, if you can hear me. Disconnect and come back in. We'll get you. Well, while Josh is getting back into the system, we're going to go ahead and take a look at one of our next clips. And the next clip that I had on the table was a clip about everybody loving Nick, which almost used to be the title for the thumbnail here. But the clip is this. Everybody loves Nick, and it's about the mainstreaming of Nick. So putting it up on screen now. Here we go.
And my message to all of our soldiers out there, my message to our cadre of patriots that I see in the streets every day. And by the way, I've become very popular. Everywhere I go now, I get recognized, and it's all love. And it's every kind of person. It's mostly young men, but it's every kind of young man. It's white guys, it's Hispanic guys, it's black guys. I see them in the airport. I see them at the drive-thru. I see them in the streets. I see them in restaurants. I see them everywhere. And they always say, I love what you're doing. Keep doing what you're doing. You're right. When I was in Washington, D.C. a couple weeks ago, I had a Uber driver. He was from Liberia. He said, I've been watching your show for years. He said, you're so right. I don't want to dox him anymore. I don't know how many of those guys there are. I saw some young white guy in the airport in Maine. He comes up and says, hey, man, love your show. You here for Tucker? When I came back in Chicago, another young white guy, built, Jack, Chad, he came up to me. He said, hey, man, love the show. Keep doing what you're doing. I went to a restaurant the other day, old school. I go there all the time, my favorite beef stand. Bunch of young kids and an older guy working there. They said, we love your show. Can we get some pictures? They said, the beef is on the house. And if they're watching, thank you for that. Everywhere I go, the people are with us. The people are with America. They're ready for the fight. They're ready to stand up for our rights. They're ready to stand up for our independence. We could put all the bullshit aside for now. We could put all the division. We could put all the animosity aside. Country's got problems. Everyone knows that. Country has racial problems, ethnic problems. There's no denying that. We're not going to see eye to eye on a lot of those things. But the one thing we can all agree on as Americans, we want our government to take better care of us and not the special interests, the rich, the oligarchs, the foreign countries. That's a message everyone can get behind. And if we can marry that to the magnanimity and the benevolence of the Christian religion, nobody should be afraid of what comes next.
So, Joe Rogan, when is Nick Fuentes going to be on Joe Rogan?
It's going to happen soon. The question is, will it matter by then? I'm excited for that because I think do you think Joe Rogan's a Fed or like little F Fed?
He's way too retarded to be a Fed.
I think he might be in on the take, so to speak. But
maybe
like, it's like I don't know what you think, but I kind of put Alex Jones into. Alex Jones may not have a badge, but I think he is a pawn for the feds. I think they know, you know what you're going to get if you send Tucker Carlson some dossier about like a particle collider or something. So I think they're like, okay, we need Alex Jones to make some noise. Let's feed him some misinformation. And he's just going to roll with it. That's what I would call a little F Fed, which might be Joe Rogan. Yeah. But I'm definitely excited to see that.
My thing with Alex Jones is actually, I was disappointed when I had seen, I wish I could remember whose video I saw, but Alex Jones made a lot of recent statements. This was like directly, like maybe a week after the Charlie Kirk thing had happened, but he's kind of putting out these statements of like why he won't even give the Israel argument any credibility at all. And what contrasted that was people going back in time to like the late 90s to having from statements from Alex Jones where he was like, I stand with the people of Israel. I support Israel's right to exist. And it's like, are you serious, dude? Like the internet's forever, man. You think you're going to run from this? Like and especially Alex Jones, bro, like you have permeated the internet for years, dog. We can find stuff from you anywhere. That was disappointing to me. But the crazy thing was, and I don't know, it's hard to put a pin on Alex Jones because he's such an anomaly. My argument against him is I don't know if he's a fed as much as it is he is desperate every single day, knowing that he's basically one court ruling away from losing everything and being kind of thrust into a bad position, and his family being, part of that too. So he's back against the wall, metaphorically. But I was very impressed because following that news of the Josh Hammer article, Alex Jones came on to discuss it as well. And he said, listen, he was like, if this is how you guys are talking about Fuentes and Tucker having an interview, he was like, well, now I have to open myself back up to the idea that maybe you guys maybe there is some involvement here. Did you guys neutralize Charlie Kirk in the hen house? Like, is that what I'm supposed to take from this? And I thought that was a great take, but I don't know. It's hard to box Alex Jones in because I feel like he does a lot of good, right? To me, he's still a net positive, regardless of all some of the smaller stuff.
That's my point. Is it's like there's a whole wide array and broad species of what it means to be a Fed. And it's not all necessarily bad. And I would put Alex Jones in that camp where what's the worst thing Alex Jones said in the last year is he has been kind of on the side of Israel. But during that time we had Nick Fuentes, and I don't think Alex Jones was not saving or doing Israel any favors by being pro them. What is Alex Jones going to do in that way?
Right.
You know what I mean? So yeah.
Kind of like, what is it called? The credibility loss or subtraction by addition, right? It's like, now we have Alex Jones on our team, and it's like, oh no, I do get that, right? And I think there is an element of that I think a lot of people automatically kind of just write him off. I want to tell you, this is kind of a bit more of a personal story, but I was blown away because I had similar reactions from not only my dad, but like my normie friend he pays a lot of attention to politics. I just say normie because he's not far right. And no joke, had brought up Alex Jones, and I don't know what my dad's opinion is now, but this was some time ago. And he basically had said, he's crazy, right? Kind of like, it was like, he didn't make it much statement beyond that, but just going like, he's crazy, kind of like a dismissal. And then same thing, I sent a video or a clip from Alex Jones covering something. Lord forgive me because I can't remember. And similar response to my friend was like, oh, dude, this guy's crazy. And it's like, really? Do people still think about that like that? When he's like been proven right, Lord knows how many times now. Maybe not on like things that are like, Zionist occupied government, but he's been right about a lot of different things, from like COVID as well as like, some of this alien stuff, right? Like, not that there's aliens, but the government clearly has these programs in place, Project Bluebeam. And it just makes me think, like, in the turning the frogs gay, I think that one's maybe the most important one. This makes me think, like, are there certain first impressions that you can't recover from, similar to Nick Fuentes? Like, is there a first impression from Nick that most people have that he will never be able to shake? I kind of think that that's possible.
Oh yeah. Like you what was it? Benny Johnson pulled up the Knicks' greatest hits. He's like, all right, let's discredit this guy.
Yep.
You're gonna get and as you saw, you pointed this out actually on your show, which was funny enough. Some of the biggest reactions, or at least at that time, like right after on Tuesday, the biggest reactions you were seeing weren't even about anti-Israel stuff. It was about the anti-woman stuff, the anti-feminist stuff. Right. And it's funny because that's the thing, is it's like, we on this side, we think it's white guys versus everybody, which it kind of is, but these people don't get along with each other either. This shoddy alliance will be their downfall as well. The women are in it because they're pacifists and they want, ooh, goo goo gaga, everyone get along. So then when they see the videos of the Palestinians getting blown to smithereens, they're not for that. The black people think of the Palestinians as the oppressed minority, and it is what it is. That's just that's what's going on.
I agree, and we are getting close to the end of the show. I want to say thank you very much for everyone who was here, who participated, who stayed through the copyright strike. Although I'm curious what that's going to look like on the other side. Also glad that Josh's connection was able to come back. That's also good. And expect more of this. We're going to try to improve. I'm going to try to find more time in my schedule, which is already feeling impossible, to add things like drops, good take, bad take. I'll show you an example of one that I have right now just for shits and giggles.
Take your Israeli family and go home.
I like that one a lot. I think that's pretty good.
I like
and
that.
thank you very much for subscribing to the channel. See, like this, things like that I'm trying to add that's going to proliferate this a bit more. That way, when someone's tired of listening to Hassan shock his dog, they'll come to this stream and they'll enjoy it too. So with that, Josh, do you have any final words for you in the stream?
Dude, this has been great. I say it every stream, but and in private, but you're killing it. These guys right here, that is so cool, dude. The little, I don't know if you can pull it up manually, but the animation thing of like the new subscribers.
Oh, yeah.
This is awesome. And I give it a month before probably one of our viewers will promote it to Nick, but I give it a month before he's aware of this show, which I'm super excited for. And I think not only we're honest, but we do the Groypers justice as well. So I'm super excited about it.
Right. No, same, exactly. And with that too, not to spoil too much, but some of the ideas I do have, because I do have connections and similar with Josh too, to individuals like Pine Sap, Tyler Russell, Beardson, getting some of the Groyper generals on, for some call-ins as well. I know Josh addressed the call-ins earlier on his show too, but that is something I would like to implement. I think we will have to do it just in a very coordinated effort. Similar to how you see the screen here, one of the ideas I had was maybe we take one caller after every clip and they can give us their take too as well, in addition to what we're saying too. But again, a lot to think about, a lot of refining in very little time, too many wives, too many children and needing to be taken care of. And also with that too, Christ is King, as always, deport Kash Patel, ban Pam Bondi from public life. And Josh, anything to add?
I love each and every one of you. Check us out tomorrow on the Nav Founders Show on this exact same channel.
Perfect. And with that, America first. Everybody have a good rest of your night. We will see you next week, 8 to 10. This has been the Groyper Report.
Where do you stand politically? Give us your political ideology.
Okay, I can say anything I want.
Yeah, bro. Say We're yeah.
I don't know, the day-to-day stuff, I'm like, yeah, more bullshit. Another white girl got stabbed to death? Of course she did. What do you expect? For my politics, I just watch America First with Nick Fuentes.
Okay.
I consider myself a Groyper. Sometimes I just wait to hear Nick's take to make sure I have the right take before I make videos, So, yeah, I just go with what Nick says. I just defer all my political opinions to Nick Fuentes at this point. I'm America First. I wish that we had white Christian men running the country. It's unbelievable to me that we have a government that has a policy other than America First. How does that make any sense? We pay taxes, use our taxes to benefit the country.